Agit Tevach, everyone. Agit Tevach, Hamazel de Gevach, Avach, Fil mit Yeshiyah. Anyways, it's a very, very exciting week we have ahead of us. First of all, it's going to be something like 22, 24 inches of snow. Sounds like a lot of fun. Emir Hashem, it won't affect us for Monday night. Regardless, we'll figure something out. Maybe we'll do a live Zoom share. We'll figure it all out. But don't worry, this will... it won't impact us. I Mamash heard great news. Motzei Shabbos as it came in, the guys wrote in the chat. The Mamash Chevra, everybody was doing Chazara. And it's really inspiring, you know. We're a month in, and I know that we had raffle number 1 on Thursday, and Emir Hashem, at the end of this video, we're going to post the results of raffle number 2. It was actually done off camera, because I needed a camera to record my iPad, so I wasn't able to do it. So it's going to be stitched in at the end. And Mazel Tov to the lucky winner. And Mitzvah you'll see at the end. Yeah, exciting stuff. We had a lot. We really went through a nice chunk of learning. Oh, and once again, just a thank you to Heshi Rosenbaum for sponsoring the $1,000 raffle. And he's continuing and following up with a $500 raffle to, I believe it was the Loft. And also, regarding this raffle, my brother sponsored the first month for the raffle for the Chazara. And in Mitzvah Hashem, we're going to have a follow-up. It is being sponsored again for this coming month, the Chazara. Okay, here we go. We're going to do the weekly Chazara, and we're going to start from Chav Beis Amud Aleph, midway down, Amar Rava. So just remember, we had, having a coffee now, it's 12 o'clock at night. Actually, it is 12:10, not so late, but we're going to see who wins, the coffee or me. But we had a bunch of interesting things that we went through, Chavet Rami, and then we brought the Mishnah in Eruvin, and had 5 scenarios, and then we went to the 2 types of schachs, and at the end of the week, we got a little hung up on 50-50, if you measure from the top or measure from the bottom, and so on. So, we're going to get through that all inside, and we're going to try to make it as quick, brief, and clear as possible. Amar Rava says, Mina Amina, where did I take this? Mina Aminala, where did I take this? Where did I take this concept that if there's a tefach above, like we said, if there's a tefach on the upper beam, you could say Chavet Rami. If not, you don't. So he's going to bring where he gets it from, the Tanan. Like we learned in the Mishnah in Neholas. Kairos Habayis V'Aliyah, Shein Alei Maziva, V'Hein Mechavonis. Kairos beams, Habayis V'Aliyah, of a house and its second floor, meaning a first and second floor. Shein Alei Maziva. It's trying to say that between the first and second floor, there is no plaster. And V'Hein Mechavonis, and they are flushed, meaning you have one beam on top, one beam on bottom, one directly on top of the other. That's what it's talking about, right? Tuma tachas achas man tachtea tame. If you have tuma underneath one of them, then the bottom of that space is tame. Bein tachtona leyoina. If there is between the first and second one, there is beinen tame. Then the in between place is tame. Al gabe hayoina kenei dal lekia tame. If it's on top of the top beam and there's nothing above it, then it goes straight up to the rekia to Shemaim, and only that area is tame. Pretty straightforward. Now we're getting into the tricky stuff. If the Elyonis are like the kebein, meaning that they are in between, in a zigzag form, Tuma tachten tachasa kulon tami. If you have Tuma beneath them, then, meaning the staggered, like we said, the staggered, if there's Tuma on the bottom level, underneath any, whether this one or the upper one, wherever that Tuma is, we say Chavot Rami, and sort of everything beneath is Tameh. Tachten, Tachas Kulon Tameh. If it's Tameh underneath any of them, then the whole thing is Tameh. Al Gabein, if it's on top of any of those beams, Kenegda Ad L'Rakia, Tameh. Up it goes straight through. Why? Because if it's on top of any of the beams, there's nothing blocking it. If it's on top of the lower beam, well, it goes straight up, there's nothing blocking it. If it's on top of the upper beam, it goes straight up, nothing is blocking it. Correct. V'tani Allah. And we have a brisa to support this Mishnah and adds to it. When do we say this? When the lower beams have a tefach, meaning it's adding just Clarification. Avol ein binyan posech tefach. If there is no opening of a tefach, tumo tachas achas man tachtea tame binyan v'algabein tar. But if you don't have this gap in between, let's say you have beam and you don't have a full gap of a tefach, which means that on top corresponding to it, that beam is not a tefach wide, then it comes out that the if there's tuma over here, it'll go straight through. If it doesn't have a tefach beam above, it'll go straight through it ad la rakia. Tuma tachas men tachtel tame benin v'agabein tahar. Only if it's underneath one of the beams that have a full tefach, it will be tame. Alma we see. So what do we see from this brayse? Ki is beit tefach amrinu chavod rami v'chilez beit tefach lo yamrinu chavod rami shmamina. So basically, Rava says this concept of chavod rami. He brings the case from Ayhalus and saying that if you have a tefach on the upper beams, then you do say chavod rami. If you do not say chavod rami. Great, very simple. Yosef Rav Kahana. Rav Kahana was sitting in Beis Medrash and he was teaching this. Yosef Kahana v'Karmel Hashmait, and he was teaching this halacha from Rava. Amalei Rav Ashi, so Rav Ashi came and he told him, Rav Kahana, v'chol hichadeles beit tefach, lo yamrinu chavod rami. Really, are you coming to tell me that wherever you don't have a tefach, we're not going to say chavod rami? V'hatanya, I have a brayso in Erevin. Kora yotzem b'koisel zeh, ve'einu negaz b'koisel zeh. If you have a beam coming from one wall, doesn't hit the other wall, and again we said this is Erevin by a mavoi, and that is for in order to carry a beam that comes from one side doesn't hit the other side. V'chein shtei kairos v'negas because of zeh. V'chein shtei kairos. This is the second scenario. Again, we're getting to the 5 scenarios. So this is scenario number 2. You have 2 beams that are coming out from 2 walls, but they're not touching each other. V'chein shtei kairos achas yetzim b'koisel zeh v'achas yetzim b'koisel zeh. Ve'enon negas zu b'zu, and they're not touching each other. Pachas mishloisha ein tzarich levi kaira. If the gap is less than 3 tvachim, whether in the center between the 2 beams or on the side from one beam to the wall, if it's within 3 tvachim, we don't have to bring another beam. You could carry in that area. Why? Because of lavud. Shloisha, however, if it's more than 3, tzarich levi kaira, you have to bring another beam or fix that and have it have a siman all the way through in order to carry. Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel says, Pachis ma'abein tzarich levi karacheres, arba tzarich levi karacheres. He says not 3 for lavud, he says 4 for lavud. Alright, due to technical difficulties, it sounds like today is going to be a bunch of a spliced camera. Battery's low, so we got to get this done pretty quick. We are on to case number 3. So, we finished off. Rabban Shimon ben Gamliel says you need 4 for lavud, not 3. Okay. This is case number 3, third line down from the top of the Amud, Chav Beis, Amud Beis. And so too 2 parallel or twin beams. Rashi says they use the lashon ke'ein ta'imim, like twins, that mamash running alongside each other. Lo bezu kedei lekabel riach, v'lo bezu kedei lekabel riach. Either one, each one is not a tefach wide. Again, we're moving along to get to the point to ask the shaila on, do you really say that you have to have a tefach on top to be chavod rami? I'm going to find you a case that's less than a tefach and seems like it works. So over here we have 2 beams, less than a tefach, parallel. So each one on their own can't hold a brick on its width. However, if together they can hold it, you don't have to bring another beam. However, if not, if they can't, you would need to bring another beam. Case number 4, scenario number 4, comes Reb Shimon ben Gamliel, and he has a more lenient case. He says, he says something very interesting. He says, okay, the last case you had was the beams side by side, and you had a brick running along on the width, meaning it was sitting on the width. Let's say this is the brick, this is the beam. You had 1 beam, 2 beams, and the brick was like this. Here he says, spread it wider and put the brick this way. So that way it's holding on its length. So it's a lot wider. There's a bigger gap. The gap is almost 3 tefachim wide. So he says like this. Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel Omer, in the Kabbalah Sariach la'arkai, if it can hold it on its length, the brick. Shlosha tvachim, 3 tvachim, in tzach levikar acheres. V'im lav, tzach levikar acheres. If it cannot hold it, then you do have to bring another beam, which means he's coming to tell you, even if the 2 beams are mamish thin, and a mamish not a tefach wide, and there's a gap, as long as they could hold within 3 tvachim mamish, it's good. Case number 5, and at the end of this case, we're going to come up with the question on Rava. Hayu achas, or the question from Rav Ashi to Rav Kahana on Rava. Hayu achas lemala, v'achas lamata. Rabbi Yossi ben Rabbi Yehuda Omer, royin hal yona kilu hilamata, v'esatachtoyna kilu lemala. So we see clearly, if you have a case of 1 beam above, 1 beam below, then Rabbi Yossi ben Yehuda says, you imagine that the beam above comes down and meets the bottom one, or the bottom one comes up and meets the top one. He says as long as the top beam is not higher than 20 amas from the ground, or the bottom beam is not within 10 tvachim of the ground, meaning lower than 10 tvachim. And he says, however, if the 2 of them are within the 20, above the 10, you do say chavoit rami, even though there is no tefach. So that's the question. You have 1 beam above, you have 1 beam above, and you say it comes down, and it's less than a tefach. So you see that you do say chavit rami even if there is no tefach. So the answer is going to be amalei teritz ve'emahachi. You have to answer this. Ubavad shloitei el yonah lemalim esrim ela betoich esrim v'atachtoina smuchala b'pachas mishloisha. So he says something very simple. He says, yes, the top cannot be higher than 20. It has to be within 20. But the beam right below it can't be at 10. It has to be within 3 tvachim. And the same thing, inami, bavad shloitei tachtoina lemata me'asara, elam lemala me'asara, ve'elyona smuchala b'pachas mishloisha. Same thing, the bottom beam has to be just above 10, cannot be less than that, and however, the beam above it can't be at the 20 mark, has to be within 3 tvachim for it to work, which is lavod. So therefore, this whole question is obsolete. We brought a bunch of scenarios to get to a good question, but the question is knocked off by saying, no, this that it says over there is lavod, nothing to do with chavoit rami. Avashloisha, kiven the lesbe tefach, laiminon chavit rami, and that's how we end off. New sugya, this is going back into the Mishnah, this one line, vishetzilas merubim mechamasa. And here's where we ended off on Thursday, and we had a little bit of not 100% clarity, but now we're going to try to give it over with super clarity. Very simple. There's a Mishnah by us and a Mishnah in Daf Beis. Each one says in the Mishnah has a lashon in reverse. By us it says shetzilos merubim mechamasa, and over there it says chamasa merubim mitzilasa. And basically it's a different way of learning it, and we learn from each way. One way we learn, well, if it's 50-50, then it's going to be possible. And when we learn, well, if it's 50-50, it's going to be kosher. So Moshe Neugarten, right at the end of the Shir on Thursday, gave a little better and simple way to clarify it. And he said like this. One is looking at the coverage above, the coverage that you have, and one is looking at the sun and shade on bottom. And that's going to be the simplest way. One Mishnah, when it says it's possible when it's 50-50, why is it possible? Because if it's 50-50 on the coverage on top, then obviously on bottom there's going to be more sun, because there's always more sun that creeps through. So why did it say possible? 50-50 above, possible. Why? Because more sun creeps through. The one that says it's kosher is because it says it's 50-50 on bottom. And if you have 50-50 on bottom, then obviously when you move up to the schach level, the coverage is more than 50-50. Otherwise it would be more. And that's how we learn it. Very simple. One, you're looking at the sun and shade on bottom, and one you look at the coverage, and each one can work in that respect. Now, inside. Ha ki hadadi. Now, we just said v'shitas merubim mechamasa, kshera, ha ki hadadi. However, if they're 50-50, psula, it's possible. Vatnan, we have bidach perkin in the first parak. V'shachamasa merubim mitzilasa, psula. So, ha ki hadadi kshera. If it was 50-50, it would be kosher. So obviously it's a stira. No, like kasha, kan milamala, kan milamata. One of them we look at the top, and one of them we look at the bottom, like we said, the coverage or the sun and shade. Amar Rav Papa, Hainu Darmi Inchi, Kezuzah Milel, Kehister Miletachas. And the way to understand it is, Rav Papa says, like a simon, is when you have a coin, and like a hole the size of a coin, and you shine through, what happens? On top, the coin could be a small coin. But if you look on bottom, it spreads out much wider. So if the top is 50-50, then the bottom is going to have much more sun. And if the bottom is 50-50, then the top has to have more coverage. And that's the most simple way to do it and say it. Rabbi said, keep doing the Chazara. We're going to cut and go to the raffle video now. And Emir Tashem, we're going to have another raffle this coming week. We're going to keep going forward. And just looking back and reflecting, we're 4 weeks in. The Olam is mamish. It's so exciting to me. Everyone is doing the Chazaras on Shabbos and really pushing forward. Let's keep rocking. Have a wonderful week. Stay safe. And don't let the snow mess this thing up.
Okay, and now for the raffle. This is for the $500 Chazar raffle. Amir Tashem, this coming month, there will be another $500 Chazar raffle. And here we go. We are spinning. And the winner is Chesky Schwartz. Okay, Chesky, I will message you privately, and Amir Hashem, I will get the money to you tomorrow. Have a good Tavach, everybody, and keep doing Chazara and keep on rocking.